I'm Jon Pratt, city engineer for the City of Detroit Lakes, and up here talking about our new water tower project. Above us is our existing water tower, and that's been in place since 1960. It's served us very well. It holds about 1 million gallons of water. And like I said, served us the community well for a very long time. But unfortunately, fortunately, we've had growth, and we're starting to outgrow the capabilities of this tank, which is what started us down the path of a new water tower. Probably about 6 or 7 years ago is when we started in earnest looking at what we might need moving into the future. The very first part of the project, which we're really at the final phases of right now, is both the deep and shallow foundations associated with the new tank. And so a lot of people in town either saw or more likely heard the very first part of it, which involved the deep foundation construction, which is pile driving. So we had to drive about 116 10-inch steel piles about 80 feet into the ground as the beginning of the foundation. And again, that's really what we call the deep foundation. They get those drove in, then those are filled with concrete and rebars attached to the top of them, and then that's when they start building the upper, the shallow portion of the foundation, which is called the pile cap. And just this week they finished up placing all that steel inside that pile cap and forming around that and pouring that concrete. So we're done with that part right now, which isn't real exciting to a lot of people, but it's just really, really critical, obviously, when you're talking a structure like a water tower. I mean, ultimately, that foundation is going to support somewhere in the area of about 34 million pounds between the support structure for the tank, the water, etc. Like I said, the tank has served us well. It is in need of some TLC. Most notably, it needs a new paint job, which is part of what coincided with looking at a new tank. This one needs a new tank. There are a few structural things that could be repaired, and we looked at that. We looked at, could we use the existing tank? And to some answers, yes, and to other answers, no. And some of the reasons that we're moving away from this tank is, one, we just don't have enough water up in the air with this tank, and we're also having some pressure issues in sort of the outer areas of town. As the town has grown, we've had more challenges maintaining acceptable pressure. So that led us to moving away from the tank. So what will happen is the new tank will get constructed over the next 12 to 18 months. And once that's complete, we'll fill the new tank. We'll operate them simultaneously for a while, sort of in a test period, if you will, make sure everything's real good. Obviously, we want to have some real confidence in the new tank before we pull the plug, so to speak, on the existing tank. But shortly after the new tank's commissioned, then the old tank will come down. Fortunately, somebody was thinking ahead when the city got this chunk of property, because often that is one of the biggest challenges, is putting another tank side by side. But we have a pretty good space up here to be able to do both of those activities. So space really wasn't too big of a challenge at this particular site. The way the tank works is this is tied to our water distribution system. All the water mains tied all over town. This actually is the open end of the system. This breeze, if you will, it's vented from the top. And as the water plant pushes water out into the system, it generates pressure, and that pressure has to go somewhere. And that pressure, as it builds, raises the level of the water in the tank into a determined height where we shut the pumps off. And ultimately, that's what is actually providing the pressure that you see in homes and businesses. It's all directly connected to the elevation of the water in this tank. That's what actually generates the pressure. It's not, so to speak, the pumps at the plant. The pumps at the plant are just pushing water out in the system, and this is the surge tank or the reservoir for the entire system. And like I mentioned, one of the challenges we're having is some of the fringe areas of town just don't, they're real marginal in terms of what we determine to be acceptable pressure. We're starting to see things down in the lower 40 psi range, which is still okay, but not great. And so with the new tank, one of the features is that it will be about 23 feet taller than this existing tank. And that generates about an equivalent of about 10 psi in the system. So everybody on the entire system will see roughly a 10 psi increase in their water pressure. The Public Utilities Commission, who is the, really the governing body for the city that operates the water utility, went through quite a process of developing the graphic for the tank. There were several that were developed, weeded down slowly. We do have the graphic designed. It's very nice. That was one of the things that I would say that the commission felt like, because of the location of this tank, it's very, very visible. It's almost a bit of a landmark in Detroit Lakes, because you can see it from the Highway 10 overpass as you're coming down Frazee Street from the lake. In other communities, sometimes these are shoved off in the corners and you don't see them, but they decided that this is, to some degree, a bit of a landmark for the city, so they put a lot of time into coming up with a very nice graphic.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. Explaining this. This is pretty cool.
My pleasure.
All right. Thanks so much.